Bowden Blitz SEC edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year, Terry Bowden. Coach, week number 4 within the conference saw great games from top to bottom. We'll take a look at the updated conference odds entering week number 5. We see the Georgia Bulldogs setting alone, plus 280, followed by the Texas Longhorns at 3-1 and Alabama at 5-1. Right now, do you feel the Georgia Bulldogs are the team to beat within the conference entering week number 5?
Yes, I saw nothing that would change that. After, again, their win against Tennessee and what they showed they can do offensively when they've got to get into a scoring match, a team that can score points, they've shown they can do that. And so that really, to me, was the one thing I needed to see answered. If this quarterback could show some maturity, could show that he could play in a big game and be successful. He has shown that. So that puts them number 1. We've still got games to be played. And I guess the number 1 and number 2 team, Georgia, number 1 and number 3 team in the odds, Georgia and Alabama, they're going to line up this week. So we're going to know real quick if Alabama is getting back to where they can hang with Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia right now, both teams coming out of a bye. Georgia stands as a 2.5-point home favorite. It's a 7:30 kick in Athens. We'll be breaking it down a little bit later in this show and later in the week on the Bowden Blitz. But games that took place in week number 4, Coach, were very entertaining. They went right down to the wire. We'll start with the battle in Norman. Oklahoma opened as a 6-point favorite in that matchup. We saw 6.5s by the end of right before kickoff, right before the lines closed, and Oklahoma struggled for much of this game. They were still in control, but the spread was in doubt. They sacked Jackson Arnold with about 30 seconds left and covered the line. They win it by 7 points. Both teams were atrocious on third downs, but John Mattie was just a little bit better than Jackson Arnold. They step up and get the 7-point home win. They're still undefeated. They're 10-1 shot. Oklahoma right now hitting on all cylinders after their week 4 performance against Auburn.
Yeah, I thought it was a great football game. You know, I called you right there. I said, Joe, they just gave up a safety with a minute left. I don't know how to play this. I had this game. I had it, and it was a 4th and 22, so the quarterback really didn't have anything else he needed to do, except he didn't confer with me on the situation. But it was a very good game. And you know what? Auburn needs to hold their heads up. There were a lot of things that happened in this game, and a lot of things that they could play better. In a lot of ways, they should have won. Just take the officiating calls. They had a trick play, substitution play that is clearly in the rule book. You're not allowed to do it. Oklahoma clearly did it. They set it up. They knew what they were doing. They scored on it, and the official would not call it back. 7 points. Auburn recovered a scoop and score on a catch that was fumbled. They picked it, run in. The official raised his hand, touchdown on review. And I watched every review, and I've seen a million reviews. There was not inconclusive evidence that it wasn't a fumble, that it was a incomplete pass. You're not supposed to overturn unless there's irrefutable evidence. And to me, that's more like a beyond a reasonable doubt, not a preponderance of the evidence. And I thought they made a terrible call there. That's a 17-point swing on those plays alone. But Auburn gave up 10 sacks, 14 tackles for loss. They had 13 penalties, and they were 2 for 15 on third downs. When you do that, you make enough mistakes to keep yourself from winning a game that you have a chance to win.
And they rushed for less than 2 yards per carry. That was the story of the game. That Oklahoma defense was running sideline to sideline. It was a back-and-forth affair. It was a blue-collar type of game. It looked like it would be low-scoring, even with the plays that you mentioned, just because of how inept the offenses were on third downs. Oklahoma converted less than 35% of their third down opportunities as well. John Mattie did throw for 271 through the air. He also rushed 10 times for 29 yards and a touchdown. He just looked, Coach, like the more poised quarterback. And I understand that Oklahoma was held in check, a great job by that Auburn secondary for the most part. But when the game was on the line, Mattie just looked like he was ready for the moment. And that's where still I think Jackson Arnold has a little bit to grow and progress. He's still a little bit raw, doesn't know where to go when the pressure gets in his face at times. And a lot of the throws for a majority of that game were short to intermediate routes. They didn't really have a lot of chunk plays in that matchup.
Yeah, I mean the game was 13-10 with just in the fourth quarter, and you got to remember Oklahoma couldn't run the ball either. They had 1.2 yards per carry on 23 or 26 rushing yards for the entire day. But John Mattie, I thought, looked a little bit better, and I'll tell you why. He only had one sack. They protected him. Now, what he did a little bit better to me than Jackson Arnold, he got rid of the ball. He didn't hang on to it. He didn't hold it. Jackson held the ball a little too much, was his own worst enemy. So I think John Mattie, in a situation where it was a tight ball game, Auburn had a very good defense. Oklahoma could not run the ball at all. He came out there and coolly, calmly did not make the mistakes and did the right thing and helped them win the game. So I think Oklahoma, I mean, like I said before, I was figuring Auburn would hang within 6.5. I didn't really pick them to win the game, but they were in a position to do that. Oklahoma probably a little bit better, but that's one I think Auburn would love to play again.
Absolutely, and we'll see. Auburn's still in the race. Their first loss on the season. Have a very difficult game on the road in College Station against Texas A&M. We'll break that game down a little bit later in the show and later in the week. But you're right. And both offense and defensive lines at times look good. I think, to your point, Oklahoma's offensive line was much better. Defensive front for Auburn stepped up. They were physical. They play like that the rest of the way. They're going to be a very difficult out for any team that is on their schedule. So we'll break it down as the season progresses.
Let me say this too. I think it's a big factor. Brent Venables, to make his program better, took over the DC defensive coordinator responsibilities. He made a difference in that game. He made a difference in the way they approached and attacked the Auburn offense, and that's going to be a big factor for Oklahoma for the rest of the season.
It will. Now, Oklahoma does square off with Texas in a couple of weeks. That's the Red River rivalry. We'll see how they fare and what the spread is come kickoff time. But Oklahoma right now looks like a very good team, top 10 unit entering week number 5. Another matchup that I think took us by surprise. We know that the dominance of Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, they had won 13 straight over Tulane. They had laid a huge number in this matchup, 12.5 points. But it's more about their quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss. The kid accounts for over 400 yards of total offense. Yet again, he rushes for over 300 yards through the air. Coach, Lane Kiffin found a gem when his starter, Austin Simmons, went down.
God, I'm going to tell you, he looks good, too. Trinidad looks really good. Chambliss, when you watch him play with the poise that he has, and he's a big physical kid, a really good-looking football player. I saw the quote Lane Kiffin had after the game. I think it was yesterday. At 100%, Simmons is still my starter. Well, at 99.9%, I'd better play Chambliss if I'm you. If it's close, I'm playing the backup because I'm not sure he shouldn't be number one. But I think the fact that Lane Kiffin said 100%, if he's 100%, he's my starter. That gives him a lot of leeway. 99.9% chance that other kid would be better if he's in the game.
Yeah, it just seems like they have more intensity and momentum. And Austin Simmons played well. It's just that he struggled at times. Go to the Kentucky game. They weren't getting the chunk plays, especially in the passing attack, the versatility in the RPO game, to your point. Trinidad Chambliss is going to be a factor for that LSU defense. We talk about the last 5 meetings. The home team has won. If Trinidad Chambliss plays the way he has the past couple of weeks, LSU's in trouble on Saturday.
Yeah, his accuracy on intermediate and deep passes was incredible. And Tulane, I know their head coach. They're a good football team. They're a blue-collar, outstanding head coach. That was one of the shockers for me that he beat them so handily and beat them so badly. I know everybody thinks there's Ole Miss and Tulane. Good job for him. Nice problem to have at quarterback.
When we come back, we'll talk about the other big matchup. Took place in Memphis, Arkansas, and the Tigers, and then we'll break down week 5 in the conference. Coming right back. Back on the Bowden Blitz, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden recapping week 4 within the SEC. One of the best games of the day took place in the 12 o'clock window. Arkansas had a double-digit lead entering the third quarter. It looked like the Razorbacks would move to 3-1 overall, and Memphis came storming back, Coach. In the fourth quarter, Arkansas was in a position to kick the game-winning field goal, but their running back, Mike Washington, on a controversial call, fumbles the football. Memphis recovers and steals it as a 7.5-point underdog.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, that's a bad way to lose that ball game. Of course, it's Memphis, supposedly a G5 level team right across the river. You know, they're right across the river. There are a lot of people that are rivals in that game. And then to lose that game on a fumble with 1 minute and 12 seconds left, and you just lost to Ole Miss in about the exact same way. So to your fans, these are games that whether you played good or bad, you lost them, and you probably should have won. Not good for Sam Pittman because they're looking for reasons to go back. I think they jumped on his bandwagon, but I really think after those 2 losses, they'll jump on the Petrino bandwagon pretty quick. But again, tough way to lose ball games. Arkansas, that's kind of been the story of their season. They're a fun team to watch because they play so hard. Their quarterback's exciting, but they're finding a way to lose.
Yeah, their defense got ripped on the ground. They gave up a huge 50-plus touchdown run to allow Memphis to close the gap and really take the momentum and seize it away from Taylon Green in that offense. We know that Arkansas could score. They're averaging well over 500 total yards per game, and I think Taylon Green is one of the most underrated quarterbacks, not just in the SEC, but all of college football. And we saw Mike Gundy be let go this week by Oklahoma State, Coach. I think the bigger question is when you talk about Pittman, they already had Bobby Petrino, and we know this offense is humming. Is that the right potential move for the Razorbacks? They're playing offense very well, but that's not the question. The question is the defense.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's the right answer. I know that's the talk of the town. That's on the radio shows going around, whether that's the best move they can make. And if they were to fire their head coach, they don't need to do that. He's still available. They could keep him till if they want to go look for a coach and start getting after it, they would do something in the middle of the season. I don't know that you would do that necessarily if you've got the answer right there on your staff. I don't know the answer, but I know that's the one people talk about. Again, I'm kind of a Sam Pittman fan because I think they play so well and they play so hard and they're so close to being a very good team without a whole bunch of NIL money and portal money. They don't have a whole lot of money to play with in that regard. But I'm just saying is the way things are going right now, people start jumping on that. We got to change course and direction. And so big win he's going to need to have this week, that's for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about that game because it's Notre Dame, it's Arkansas, and that's a 6.5-point spread, Coach. 6.5-point spread. Do you feel like Notre Dame could come in there and just dominate, or is Notre Dame going to have to score 40 to pull that game out with Taylon Green?
I mean, my thoughts right now is that Notre Dame will have to score because I think Taylon Green's going to be hard to stop. It's going to have to be a scoring match. I'm not sure what the over-under is. What's that?
64.5.
Oh, my goodness. I can see why it's so high because there are going to be some points put on there. Now that I've seen Notre Dame put 40 on the board in a losing effort, makes you think that 64 is not too high on that game. But I think Arkansas is going to have to really have a great game. And defense is going to come through. Now, I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm not ready to say yet I'm going to pick one or the other. But Notre Dame's going to come in there needing a victory, too, and needing to have the kind of season they want to have. We don't know that they can even get back in the college football playoff, but they're a program that wants to have a successful year, even if it's something to build on with their freshman quarterback and their future.
Absolutely. I will say this. I think it could be a huge day for Jeremiah Love. Just the way Memphis ran the football, you have a bigger physical offensive line. I don't worry about Taylon Green and the Arkansas Razorback offense. I worry about that defense potentially shutting down C.J. Carr and that passing attack as well, because you know as well as anybody, when you can run it, that opens up play action, and this is a defense in Arkansas giving up 157 rushing yards to opposing offenses. They're giving up well over 40% on third down conversions. It might be close for a half. I just think potentially it's a very bad matchup for Arkansas, but styles make fights. So to your point, we'll break this game down a little bit later in the week. But early on, I'm leaning to Notre Dame laying a short number in Fayetteville. But Fayetteville is a very difficult place to play. We'll see how it plays out. Another difficult place to play is the Magnolia Bowl, because whoever has the home field advantage, Coach, over the last 5 years has won the game. Last year, the LSU Tigers pulled it out in the second half. They were a 1.5-point favorite at the start of the week. They're now 1.5-point underdogs to Trinidad Chambliss and the Ole Miss Rebels. Can the Tigers pull it out on the road?
I think the Tigers have to get themselves together and have the kind of offensive performance that they are capable of having. They've kind of played around with it. They've got to have a great day out of their quarterback. They've got to run the football well. They've got to have balance, and they need to show what they can do, because this is a game, if they don't put some points on the board, as good as their defensive is, I think that Ole Miss is going to score points. And so it's going to be a real deciding factor to me for that LSU offense. Now, LSU's got an outstanding defense, and I'm not so sure the over is one of those games you're going to jump right on with the way LSU plays defense and the way that the LSU's offense has not scored a lot. I don't see the real high-scoring game, but I think the offense at LSU, this is a Nussmeier needs to have the game of his life to get this program to that championship level, or this is going to be a tough one because they're going into Ole Miss and playing in Oxford.
Totally agree. Now, Ole Miss's offense is averaging 5 yards per rush, well over 500 total yards per game. You look at the LSU defense right now, holding opposing offenses under 3.5 yards per rush and only 182 passing yards per game. That's going to be the matchup that plays out on Saturday afternoon in Oxford. Lane Kiffin, very upset about that, had some choice words. Lane Kiffin, Coach, said, play the over. He was telling everybody 52.5 last year was 29-26. They got over that 52.5. We'll see if they could do it on Saturday afternoon. We'll dive into some of the other games within the SEC coming right back. Back on the Bowden Blitz, diving into week 5 within the SEC. Left off talking about the battle in Oxford between Ole Miss and LSU. Home team has won 5 straight in the series. We'll turn our attention to the primetime matchup in Athens. Alabama, Coach, has won 9 of the last 10 meetings within the series. The only time Georgia got the victory was when they won the national championship about 4 years ago. Ty Simpson and this team are coming off a bye. Georgia's rested after their win on the road against Tennessee. Georgia is a slight 2.5-point home favorite in this ball game. How do you see it playing out?
Well, I've coached in Sanford Stadium against Georgia, and I've coached against Alabama. That stadium alone is worth 3 points. To me, that alone is a 3-point advantage being in that stadium. The way they play at their place, between the edges, going to be hard to beat them there. Now, I'll say this because I know they've lost 9 out of 10, and I know that Kirby Smart lost to DeBoer last year. But I think when you remove Nick Saban from the equation, you can take most of those victories and say they were more because of him than just being Alabama. Now that you put it to a team that Kirby Smart's lost 1 game against a DeBoer coach team, got them at home. I think Alabama's still a little bit more of an unknown to me than Georgia is, but the home field advantage to me right now, that's what I'm looking at. The quarterback, the way I watched him play against Tennessee, and the home field advantage that I think Georgia has playing at home.
I agree with you. I like Georgia in the matchup. A couple of reasons why. We talk about offensive identity for Georgia. They're getting back to running the football. They're averaging 209 rushing yards per game. They're very difficult to run the football on. This Georgia defense right now has only given up 82 rushing yards per game. They're holding opposing offenses to 27% on third down conversions. And if you think about last year's game, Georgia was confused by the RPO game with Jalen Milroe. And I'm not taking away from Ty Simpson in any capacity, but he's nowhere near the athlete that Jalen Milroe was, accounting for 4 touchdowns in the first half of that ball game. It's going to be a completely different offense. Now, I will say Alabama gets a boost. Jam Miller, their starting running back, will return for this game. He was out for the whole first 4 weeks of the season with a broken collarbone. We'll see if they utilize him a lot. If you're head coach, Kalen DeBoer, are you utilizing Jam Miller coming off no action right now in a broken collarbone?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to do what you can. I can't be at practice and know it, but this is one of those games, if you're going to come back and win the conference and make the move back to where the fans want you to be, because remember, we're only about 3 weeks removed from a bunch of people in Tuscaloosa wanting a new football coach, and right now he's got to pull every stop out. So there's no tomorrow after Georgia as far as what you need to do. Not saying the season's going to end, but you need to go out there and play a great game against Georgia. And set yourself up for your future. Their first game against Florida State was non-conference. And so the conference season's not over. What I'm saying is this is where anybody that's ready to play needs to go if they can go this week.
I agree with you. I still like the wide receiver core of Georgia. Yeah. They seem to be coming up. Kobe Young, Zachariah Branch. That group right now has played lights out through the first 3 weeks of the regular season. It's a 7:30 kick. Coach and I will break it down on our next show on Thursday afternoon. Texas A&M and Auburn right now. This series goes back and forth every other year. You look at Auburn coming off a disappointing road loss. They're back on the road in Kyle Field, 6.5-point road underdogs in this matchup. It's a very difficult spot for the Tigers, but I might take this 6.5 with Auburn over Texas A&M.
I'm leaning there too. Auburn, this is to me is almost like the Oklahoma game. This Texas A&M is, I don't know if they're as good as Oklahoma, but it's that type of team that to go into their place, over 100,000 people at their stadium, and to beat them is, if you don't have a very good defense, which they do, that can shut people down. The crowds can be quietened down if you can shut down their offense. Although Marcel Reed had a fabulous game against Notre Dame, I still think Auburn is due for a game where they put it all together and they can get this game. Because, again, as much as we compared Mateer to Jackson Arnold, I think he did play a good football game. I think he still has 0 turnovers, and it's not turning the ball over. So I could see this game where I'm right now, early in the week, leaning toward Auburn in the 6.5.
Coach and I will break down that game a little bit later this week, but there's breaking news. Oklahoma John Mattie will undergo surgery Wednesday to address a right hand injury. Venables said he expects Mattie to return at some point this season. Could affect the odds for Oklahoma. We'll talk about it later in the week. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great day, everyone.